breath is, it's like a secret ingredient we have not been using to our fullest potential.
Tamsyn, thank you for coming on the podcast. It is an absolute pleasure.
Lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I do wish that it could be in person, but given the current climate, I think Zoom is going to be as good as it can get.
For a little while yet. It's a bit hard to get social distancing going in the sauna together.
Yeah, even I've got a fairly large sauna here, but yeah, I think social distancing isn't going to be happening inside here. So to get things started, what would be the sweatiest moment you've ever experienced?
Oh, probably in days of hiking, actually. So one of my challenges to prepare, I love trying things that really test the body's limits and see how far my body can carry me and take me. And I have been training for climbing Everest Base Camp.
Wow.
And as part of that training, I coaxed my best friend into going to South America with me and hiking the Inca Trail. So we had all these series of like challenges to prepare for hiking the trail, like doing 1,000 steps a day and, a whole bunch of different things. And one of the experiences that I decided to sign myself up for was going and hiking something called Roy's Peak in New Zealand. And it was a 6-hour hike. So it wasn't very long, but it was incredibly steep.
Right.
So in the 6 hours, you go 4 hours up, 2 hours down. Your elevation is 1,500 feet or 1,500 meters. So it was quite steep. But I was thinking, like, it's not exactly base camp. So I'll give myself the challenge of walking all the way from the caravan park, which was then another 8 hours on top of it.
Oh, my gosh.
Each way, So it was like a crazy long hike, this huge, steep elevation. Going up was fine. It was, exhausting, but fine. But coming down, my joints were aching. I couldn't tell, was I the sweatiest I've ever been or the wettest I've ever been? Because I was sweating like, absolute rainstorm, and it was raining and it was cold and everything was frozen and it was just awesome. I think that would definitely make my sweatiest bucket list. Just note to self, when there's an extreme hike, don't walk all the way from the caravan park first for 8 hours. Like, just drive.
So did you end up walking back to the caravan park as well?
Yeah, and it was so funny because all the way there, we dragged my partner into it. All the way there, we're chatting. Oh, I was so excited to be doing this. Halfway up the mountain, we're like, okay, this is tough. At the top of the mountain, don't talk to me. Coming down the mountain, shut up. At the bottom of the mountain, silence. Like, all the way back, there was not a word spoken. Every now and then, you're right. It's just like... But it was so good, and it was such a good challenge. And we went back to a hot sauna and cold plunge pool to recover. So yeah,
I think you and I are very alike in that sense of like, okay, this is like what normal people do. How can I like take that to the extreme and just like add all of this extra work on, just to really push yourself.
Yeah. But it's so fun, isn't it? You discover so much about yourself when you go past the levels of comfort, even past the levels of what you thought was possible, into then, you're fully stretched, not to the point of abusing your body, but fully stretched to like, wow, here I am at capacity. And that capacity changes all the time, but you're really walking the edge of what is possible for your body or yourself or your life in that moment. And I love that. Really love it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and in those moments of, I guess, discomfort, like that's where the growth happens. I think whether that's mentally or physically, when you go into that space of like, there's a lot of unknown here and I'm not feeling very comfortable and there's a bit of suck involved, a lot of time that's where the magic happens. In fact, I even find now that when I have something that's coming up that I need to do, if I find that there's resistance there, like internally, that some part of me doesn't want to do it, I'm like, okay, that means I have to do it because something good is going to come out of that, because there's going to be some learning there, or there's going to be something that, just benefits my being overall. So I can totally relate to that. I like that. And so you're doing so many amazing things in the mental wellness space at the moment. In fact, I remember when we first met and I was just learning about all the things you were doing. I was like, how do you have so much time in the day? It's really amazing. And where did that passion come from? Because you've been on that journey for a number of years now. Where did that sort of originate from?
I think I've always had that passion. It's always something that that has been a massive value for me my whole life. My mum just came to visit me we went out for dinner for the first time since lockdown, about a week ago. And she was sharing a story with me that I'd forgotten about when I came back from, it must have been like a year 11 school camp or something. And she got called into the principal's office and thought it was something serious or something naughty I'd done at camp or something like that. They said, we need to talk to you about Tamsyn. And so my mum went into the office and she sat down with the principal and she's like really nervous. And she said the principal started to share with her how she was a little worried about, if I was going to get bullied or teased or whatever, because at camp I had been caught sitting around the campfire giving everyone lectures on how smoking was so bad and how drugs was so bad and how they should look after their lives, and if they meditated they would have all these amazing realizations and they wouldn't need and this was like when I was 16 years old. So I was laughing so hard at this because this is sort of like how I became known amongst my friends group, is like always so alternative and always so interested in maxing out what you can get from your mind and your body and your life. It's about, for me, the passion is about a life fully lived, and living your best version of your life. And if you don't have access to the best version of your brain, and that's the computer that's driving this body, this machine, this temple that we're in, if you're not feeding your soul and nourishing your spirit, then you're not getting maximum capacity for everything that part of your being can give you. If you're not looking after this temple with nutrition and health rituals, and how can you ask for the best out of this experience? And so for me, that's always been common sense and something that I have invested in at every stage in my life and dedicated my career to. So one of the biggest challenges I've been asked to face would be living with mental health struggles, with anxiety in particular. And to be able to have managed that my whole life, to it never, not only not limiting me, but being actually an asset in my life, I then feel very passionate about sharing that with others, sharing, learning stuff and then sharing it with others, learning stuff and then sharing it with others, and just being on this constant student journey with my clients, friends, family, children, partner, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we learn these things that help us personally, there's just this drive to want to share it with the world, as I know you have so many great techniques and morning rituals, which I'm excited to get into and talk more about. But I'm sure as you develop those, you were just telling everyone about them because you saw how they affected your life in such a positive way. Back to when you were dealing with the anxiety and that sort of thing, I'm lucky I've never dealt with anxiety personally, but I've seen the effects on others, and it's crippling, especially during like an anxiety attack. Was there a period in your life where you were going through that and it was quite strong that made you seek how to deal with it? Or were you always just kind of trying to figure it out?
No, I mean, as a child, I lived with it a lot and I just thought it was normal. I remember the first time I went to seek help was when I was going through my divorce. I was in my early 20s and I had 2 young boys. And I was going through a very sort of messy separation and divorce. And the change in my family lifestyle and being under this massive trauma and stressor just brought it all up into panic attack stages, where pretty much day to day was like a living panic attack, nonstop waves and waves of panic attacks. And I'd never had it to that degree before. And so I sought help. I went to a counsellor and a psychologist straight away, and tried a few different types of trauma counselling, and found one that I found really supportive, which was much more play-based therapy. It was very creative in its expression, and it kind of caught me off guard. It was less talking and more exploring. So I really loved that. And I remember when I was first seeing her, she said to me, "Isn't it funny that your mind thought, or you thought it was normal to cry yourself to sleep at night as a child because you were so filled with fear? I thought every child experienced that."
Right.
So I was having massive anxiety all the way through my childhood. But to me, that was just a normal part of growing up. That was just something that everybody had to face. And it wasn't until I started to seek help as an adult, going through a big change, that I realized that low-level anxiety had been there all my life, and that I hadn't known what to do with it. I'd kind of normalized it, but not been able to get control of it. So it wasn't until I went through this big life-changing experience and it all sort of flared up that I actually got a chance to see it for what it was, and get some quite significant help. I fell in love with psychology through that time, and that's when I started my training and became a counsellor myself, and trained in all different types of therapy, and really love it as a form of sort of unpicking what goes on in the mind, so that you can have great healing and great not just relief from the symptoms, but great resolve and self-discovery, and use these things as a way to get to know yourself better than you did before. So it became a great awakening journey for me through a 10-year period and ongoing, So that was the biggest change and start of my discovery of who I am as a being, as a person, and what works for me to support my mind and my body and my nervous system and my life the best,
Yeah, that's beautiful. When I grew up, for me, health was always a physical thing that that I worked on. It was like the physical food that I put in, the physical water I'm drinking, movement, and the mind kind of came after that. For me, it was, I don't know, I started learning about how our thoughts affect our physical body, and how if we hold on to things, or we don't let go, or we're always nervous, or we're always coming from a place of fear, these things end up manifesting in physical issues down the track. And I remember the first time I heard that, I just thought, oh, that's a bit weird for me. I don't know if I subscribe to that. And now more than ever, I'm like, no, let's start with the mind, actually, because if we don't get that right, it's going to be really difficult to drive any new habits, any real change in our life if we're coming from the wrong place. So I think it's a really, I guess, a blessing in disguise back when you were going through that, to have had to experience and deal with that anxiety, to then work through it and learn and appreciate how significant what's going on in our brain actually is. And then that seems to have flowed through to some beautiful rituals and things that you do every day. And so coming out of that, then when did you start to focus more on the body? I know you're big on the nervous system and sauna and ice baths and those kind of things. Was that kind of after that 10-year period of working as a counselor? I imagine it all started to come together at a similar time.
It did, yeah. It was very, the first few years of my study was very mainstream, and then the next 5 years was very alternative. So I was then very much getting into, in the first in the first stage, it was like, what can the mind do? What can our thoughts do? What can talking do as a process? What can play and creativity do to help us overcome sort of patterns that we have playing out? So definitely the mind was first for me. And then I started to experience the interconnectedness of all of those thoughts and our emotionality, so our emotional body. And I spent then the next 3 years really diving into a much more depth therapy where you're exposing yourself to strong emotional states and experiencing a release of them and a rewiring of what they mean, the story means. So I spent about 3 years really diving into emotional-based therapies. Incredibly powerful. And it was during those years that I started to get really out of whack when I worked too much. So if I saw more than 3 clients a day, I would find I would be not able to turn the ticky down at night. It was like I was really wired, hyped up. And I realized what I was doing was opening energetically with people and emotionally with people, but I wasn't taking care of my body. Sometimes I wouldn't even eat until 2:00 in the afternoon, and I wouldn't notice because I was so in love with what I was doing. And so it actually led to a quite a weird period of time where I was anxious, but not. It was almost like chronic stress, a build-up of chronic stress. And my solution to that was found in caring for the body. So I started getting regular massages, regular chiropractic, regular saunas, regular detoxing. So I'd detox once every 6 weeks. I never drank alcohol or too much coffee or whatever through those times. But as in the years since, I make sure that I drop any alcohol consumption or coffee or heavy toxins or anything, and make sure that I'm really cleansing my body regularly and doing morning rituals. And I found by doing, the key for me was the morning rituals. And when I started to get rituals that worked for me every day, and they came before everything else, before opening my emails, before opening my socials, before even taking care of the kids. I raised my children primarily on my own, and I had 3 children through those years I was studying and training. And so before the children woke up, I would make sure I was up doing my rituals, my routines, and that was like the thread of calm that held everything together. Then I could go next level with my depth of emotional opening and the mind, working with the mind so cleverly, and deep openings into the soul, and it just grounded everything.
Yeah, that time in the morning it's if you don't have that, the days when I don't do my morning thing, then you the day's impacting you. You can't impact the day from there. You don't have your magic on, hey? Yeah, exactly. It's like, where's my fairy dust today? It's gone, So what are some of those, or what's your morning ritual at the moment?
I like the way you asked that question, actually, because I do change it up a lot. I find the one consistent thing for me is the sauna, which I'm very blessed to be sitting in an eye health sauna. I absolutely love it. And I have been saunaing daily for 2 years now. And this is the one thing I never get bored of. It never changes for me. This is the key component. But it becomes also my prayer temple. So I don't have a particular religion, or, I meditate and I pray, and I'm all sorts of things. So I just have no kind of rules for myself around faith. But I certainly have faith in something bigger than myself. So I make sure that when I'm in here in the morning, the first thing I do is my dry brushing ritual. So I'm first taking care of my body. So when I wake up in the morning, I turn the sauna on, I make myself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whatever I feel like that morning, and I go back to bed and I do my intention writing while it's warming up, because it only takes 20 minutes to get to the temperature I like to start in.
Yeah.
And in my intention writing, I do my gratitude practice, which is at least 3 things that I feel grateful for that morning. And I take time to feel each one, not just write it down. I download the things that I'd like to achieve for the day and what my focus points are. And I use something called Best Life Journal to do that process, but I change it up quite a bit. And then I come into the sauna and I bring my apple cider vinegar water. So I get through a litre of apple cider vinegar, a tablespoon into my litre of water.
Yeah.
And I do my dry brushing, so full dry brushing ritual while my skin's still dry. And then I'm in here for about 45 minutes to an hour every day. So in that time, I meditate, I pray, I do my Wim Hof breathing, which is the best kind of dynamic breathing exercise. I teach about 5 different styles of breathing techniques for different outcomes. The retention breath one I really, really like when it comes to accessing the vagus nerve and being able to control your body at a subconscious level, being able to control your mind and move you into a relaxed, meditative kind of magic state where you really can be influencing the world around you. So I really love that. And then I do ice bathing. So yeah, that's how I start the morning each day, a bit of a yoga stretch at the end of it. And if it's on one of my run days, I go for a run before my sauna. So
that's awesome. I love every single bit of that. I feel like you and I have the same meditation practice in the morning. Things you're talking about, exactly the same things that I do myself. So you touched a bit about the vagus nerve. Tell me a little bit more about that. What is the vagus nerve and kind of why do we want to activate it?
So it's actually the part of the brain that it's still very controversial whether we can control it or access it or not. It's the part that's responsible for activating your relaxation response. So your your parasympathetic nervous system that calms everything down in the body. It teaches your body or allows your body to relax. It's what sends you into detox and what's called the rest digest response. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. But the relaxation response in the body is controlled, and a lot of our thought processes that go on inside our mind are controlled by the vagus nerve, which acts kind of outside of our control most of the time. But when we enter deep meditative states, we have the opportunity to impact and control and access that control center in the brain. And it only happens at very, very deep meditative states. The same way as you reach deeper levels of sleep, where the brain operates in different ways, different parts of the brain waves are activating each other. So one of the shortcuts to accessing the power of the vagus nerve and the relaxation response in the body is through breathing techniques. Breath is it's like a secret ingredient we have not been using to our fullest potential. So it's a really great opportunity to be able to especially for people that don't meditate well, that don't naturally find it easy to relax. I find my mind is incredibly active. So breathing exercises are a really useful way of bypassing a lot of that sort of, self-imposed stress.
Right.
It gives you something to do, but it also gives you direct access to the vagus nerve when you are on that command center of the brain. You can literally slow your heart rate down. Even in the sauna, I've played with this so many times. When I'm in the stressor of heat or cold, I can manipulate my heart rate even. I can manipulate my blood pressure. I can manipulate absolutely what's happening inside my body when I'm in control that way by doing my breathing exercises. So it's a very powerful opportunity to kind of access the control panel, really, of your mind.
I love that. How can we access the control panel? Tamsyn. Do you think you could give us a taster?
Absolutely, yeah, I can. Now, normally this exercise would take you about 20 minutes to go through. So what I'll do is I'll take you through 1 or 2 rounds of the dynamic retention breath. If you want to explore this method in detail, I'd recommend Wim Hof method. I do my own sort of edited version of this because I find that there's some really safe, beautiful psychology breathing strategies that are very close to this method, and they're done in a way that's a little more relaxing rather than sort of hyping you up into that state. And so getting yourself into a comfortable position, you want your back to be supported. I have my legs crossed, but it is actually more grounding to have your feet on the floor.
Yeah, I've got my feet on the floor now. I'm sitting up with my back straight. Do I need to be leaning against anything?
It just depends on how strong your back is. With you, it'll be fine.
Okay.
I like to lean myself up against something because sometimes what happens when I'm doing this exercise is your head can become quite light. Your energy, when I talk about your energy, I mean more your body energy can become quite spacious. So your sense of awareness can become quite wide, so you don't want to be hitting anything if you feel a bit lightheaded.
Yeah, okay.
You're taking a lot of deep, controlled breaths in. So if you haven't done something like this before, it can have you feeling sort of a little tingly and lightheaded, which is good. The breathing is deep, slow, and controlled, so it's not fast, rushing breaths in and out.
Right.
Definitely do not do this in water or when you're standing up. You can do it lying down in bed before you go to sleep if you find you do get the dizzy head. Sometimes I get like ringing in my ears and stuff when I'm doing this exercise, all those things, tingling hands. It's just from the extra oxygen rushing into your body. So when you're doing the breathing, you're doing 30 to 40 cycles of deep in-breaths. And when I say deep, you're doing a big filling your belly, filling your chest, filling right up to the top of your head. So it's a real big, and then when you do your out breath, you're just letting it go. You're not emptying your lungs like we do with the yogic cleansing breath. So it's a huge breath in, full capacity. I like to do it through my nose, so I close my lips, because when you breathe in and out through your nose, it has additional relaxation qualities to it. So deep breath in through the nose and then release breath. Now, because I found it hard to count while I was breathing, I just time 2.5 minutes, because that's how long it takes me to do 30 to 40 cycles. You can time your own and then just work to a stop clock. And when you're ready, deep breath in and release. And already you should start to feel your head rushing, especially when you're doing it in the sauna and you have all the warm air rushing into your lungs. This is an excellent exercise for anyone that experiences asthma, as it's expanding the capacity of the lungs. You're already a minute in. And if you want to, you can close your eyes. And turn all of your attention to your breath. Deeper breaths in as your capacity builds. You should be able to take deeper and deeper breaths in. "15 more seconds. "10 more seconds. Taking them as deep as you can go. And in a minute, you're going to empty your lungs and just hold your breath. And this is the retention part. Taking a deep breath in and out. And just hold. And we're just not breathing. This is the retention part of the breath. And it's not forcing you to hold. It just should be that your body is so flooded with oxygen that there's no need to breathe. Feeling your body going deeper and deeper into its relaxation response. And when you feel the need to breathe, you take a deep breath in and you hold it for 10 to 15 seconds, pushing the oxygen into your head. Taking a deep breath in and pushing up into your head. And release. And that's one round. And so each round we do, we go for as long breathing, but longer naturally on the retention. So each retention breath, you'll find the next time you'll be able to go a minute and a half out to 2 minutes. You're not forcing the body, you're just relaxing and letting it just rest breathlessly. And then when you feel the urge to breathe, you take a deep breath in and you hold and you push the breath up into the head, which accesses all those parts of the brain that we're trying to access, and it slows the heart rate down as you then release. And you go through 4 rounds of that breathing. Each round you will get deeper and deeper access to that relaxation response. And then you just rest deeply afterwards. What was that like?
That was sensational. I feel like I need to get everyone in the office doing that after 2 hours of reading emails.
Yeah.
That was really nice. Thank you so much. I just wanted to sit there in the peace for 10 minutes.
Oh, I definitely recommend you try that afterwards when you can go. By the time you get to the 3rd or 4th round, sometimes I'm not breathing for like 2.5, 3 minutes.
Right.
And I'm just like having all these revelations and mind opening, and then the urge comes. It's like, oh, breathe. Huge breath in, and then the whole body is just like in this peaceful Zen space. And the more you practice, this is something I do every morning now, and I try to do it before I exercise. If I'm then to go into a run after this, my heart rate stays on average about 10 beats per minute lower than it would if I hadn't done the breathing beforehand. Yeah, exactly the same track, I'm a distance runner, so it's exactly the same kilometers, and I still find a dramatic drop in my heart rate.
That's fascinating. During that, I was focusing on the breath, but then I had one of those brain moments, and I was like, man, accessing the vagus nerve through doing that and putting our body into a parasympathetic nervous system response, and then coupling that with, if you're in a sauna that is big enough for you to lay down even just being horizontal compared with sitting upright can actually put us into a state of parasympathetic. And then being in the sauna, studies show that being in infrared sauna puts us into a parasympathetic nervous system response as well. It's like all those things combined is why doing that in the sauna can be so powerful.
Absolutely. And you're actually working with a stressor by being in the sauna. Being at this level, like already we are at 50 degrees and the body would naturally be in a stress response. So when I start the breathing, I've done my dry brushing, I've done my prayer, my meditation, and then I go into my breathing techniques. My heart rate would be up at around about 115 beats a minute because of the heat of the sauna. By the time I'm finished 4 rounds, my heart rate is at about 59 beats a minute.
Wow.
In the same temperature.
Right.
Like it literally teaches your body to override the stressor of the heat. Or post this, I do a cold plunge in an ice bath and it will override the ice. So I find this is brilliant for recovery of joints and inflammation and all the things. And it literally has you override that stress. And if you're training your body to override stress, when you go out to the day in your work and you have stress exposure, your body is programmed to be able to open and help you relax in stress, which is so beneficial.
I think that leads into why so many entrepreneurs and, really successful people like yourself, Tony Robbins, all these guys, they have these morning rituals, and it often involves breath work, meditation, and some form of low-level stress or hormesis, whether that's sauna or going for a run like yourself. And because you set your day up right, but you also, you're training yourself and you're giving yourself these tools that you can access throughout the day. So yeah, when you do have stress come up, whether it be at work or in family or whatever, you're just better equipped. Your mind is just in a better state to be able to handle those things. That's why I'm such a big advocate of meditation alone, because when you start to have that awareness of things just happening, you can deal with something not going quite right. It's like, okay, well, that's just something not going quite right. That's okay. I'm not going to be harmed. I can deal with that. It's just a thing that I need to work through. And yeah, I think that breath work there is just, I don't know why I haven't been doing that actually.
There's various ways you can do it as well. I mean, on a health note, somebody with medically high blood pressure should get doctor's consultation. Obviously, same with saunaing prior to doing that kind of breath work. But there's another type of breath work I love, which is the box breathing, which I'm sure you have had somebody on one of your podcasts teaching box breathing. But very simply, a 4 breath in, hold for 4, 4 breath out, hold for 4. Doing that as a relaxation exercise, like you're literally making a box with your breath. In 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4. And once you get into the rhythm of that kind of breathing, you lose the count. You don't need to count anymore. You're just lost in rhythmic breathing. That actually triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, because the parts of your lungs that you're accessing, the filaments in the bottom of your lungs, when you're breathing from that part of your lungs, it tells your mind and your amygdala that you can't be running from danger. There's no risk to you, because you're now breathing from the bottom of the lungs.
Right.
And so it triggers the parasympathetic nervous response. I actually do equine training with my horses, and I can get the horses to do exactly the same breathing while they're frightened, and they will calm down to the point of lying down.
Wow.
It's incredibly powerful, and we are not using it. When we are the most stressed, we're the most hyped up, and we're talking from the top of our lungs, and we're barely taking a breath.
Right.
And we're even just doing that for a couple of seconds, my brain's already going, whoa, what's up? It's how it's wired. It's not, there's nothing wrong with you. It's like it's wired to do that and set everything on alert. The other thing that happens in our brains is our brains reward with a hit of dopamine when we make a pattern. So The reason games are so addictive is because we're accomplishing levels and we're making patterns. So in a young adolescent brain, that keeps giving a hit of dopamine. Every time they reach a new level, they make a pattern, they get a reward, the brain releases dopamine, and then they want the next hit. So when we have rituals and patterns and we start our day in that process, no matter how busy we are, at my busiest time with 3 kids, 2 businesses, single mum, I would still shave off 20 minutes by getting up 20 minutes before my first child would wake.
Yeah.
And I would do a cup of tea, a book, a breathing exercise, a prayer and a meditation. So when we have that pattern in our lives, and we do that pattern, our brain rewards us with dopamine and a release of serotonin, which literally is our happy drug.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually matter almost what your ritual is. It's the process of following a ritual that will release those chemicals that put your mind in the best possible state for a happy experience in your life. So it's like hacking your brain, really, to do things you want it to do.
So are you saying that regardless of what the pattern is, it's just the fact that if there's a pattern there, we'll be rewarded?
Absolutely. I remember working with a family where there was 3 children with disability in the house. The woman was raising the children on her own. She was a grandmother, and huge amounts of stress, no support in place. And I suggested a morning ritual to her, and she laughed at me and said, as if I've got time for any of that. And I said, all right, well, let's just do an experiment for 1 month. That's 4 weeks. That's 21 days, which is enough to set up a new pattern.
Right.
I said, what do you have time to do? Nothing. Okay, cool. Well, what do you love doing? And she said, I love reading. That used to be my guilty pleasure. It's like, all right, what do you like to drink? And she's like, oh, well, I love a cup of tea. So her morning ritual that she agreed to experiment with for 21 days was spending 5 minutes with a cup of tea, reading 5 minutes of her book. That was it.
Yep.
And I gave her a book on mindfulness, which she started reading. And soon her 5 minutes became 15 minutes. Then it became something she was like, I have this little gift that I give to myself every morning. It then became half an hour. So she started waking up at 5:30 so that she could have her half an hour to herself. And it put her in a whole different frame of mind for the day. Then instead of waking up yelling, resenting, actually what she was getting was a hit of serotonin and a hit of dopamine that then when the kids gave their normal challenges to her, she was like, oh, well, how are we going to work with that? She was more in a creative mindset.
Yeah.
And by the end of the 21 days, she actually had a really good ritual for herself that then she could add to. Then we started adding in there some health rituals. Okay, how about we add to that a green smoothie in the morning? How about we add to that a little breathing technique, So we had space to add to it. But yeah, essentially, no matter what your routine is in the morning, it's a good place to start, wherever that is. Start from somewhere. It's better to have some pattern for your body to reward you than none at all.
Absolutely. I think there's some really wise words in there of just like starting with something that's 5 minutes. Whenever we look after our body, we're rewarded from the universe or whatever you believe is out there. We're always gifted something back. That's what I love about fasting, because it's one of the most efficient ways, or I believe the most efficient way to cleanse and heal the body. And so when you go through a process like that, it's hard, it's challenging, it's also a really beautiful experience. But afterwards, the universe just says, thank you for honoring this body that we've been gifted. Here you go with abundance and happiness and joy and love. And every time after I fast, it's just my life is just, it's just improved. It's just, there's just nicer things happening. Maybe it's just because my awareness is different and I see things as a gift, which they always are, more clearly after fasting. But I just find whenever we give to our body and nourish ourselves, it's not selfish. It just allows us to be better humans and have a better experience of life. And I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. The
interesting word, selfish. I love to challenge this word because I think it comes from the idea of being self-centered, which is such a good practice to have, to start with yourself, to take responsibility for yourself first before focusing on others or how it's others' fault or others, what you can give to others. You actually come with a full vessel, and it's so valuable to do that. And fasting is, just picking up on your point there with fasting, it's a sacred ritual that's been done for as long as humans have existed.
Right.
It leaves the body free from digestion, which is the biggest energy zapper, and lets it be completely available for detox, for revelation, for inspiration, for direct communication from all the molecules that are around you trying to communicate with you. So there's no faster way to raise your vibration, clear your body, calm your nervous system. Just make sure, obviously, people are doing it in the right way, but it's an incredible gift to give yourself. So yeah, I can meet you in that gratitude for fasting.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I turned my camera off for you, but if you could see me now, I have the biggest grin because just absolute spot on words there. I love that. So if you were chatting with someone and they said to you, I'm dealing with some anxiety, I just feel like the world's on top of me, and I just can't seem to put the right foot forward anywhere. What are some simple things that you would say to that person that, might be able to help them? Would it be start with something, building a pattern in the morning? Where would you kind of take them?
It really depends on the individual. Certainly what I did, first thing I did was I sought help, because when you're in the middle of it, you don't know how severe it is or not, because you've kind of like a frog in hot water, or a person in a sauna, you acclimatize to it slowly, so you don't actually notice how hot you're getting. And it's the same thing with anxiety. You don't actually notice how chronic it has or hasn't gotten, and you're not a neutral party. You're in it. So I would definitely recommend reaching out and getting some help, even if that help is just a couple of catch-ups with a counsellor that you respond well to, or a psychologist, or a psychotherapist, or whatever sort of modality you choose. I love a life coach, who's trained in all those areas, but they also have some real practical training to give me as well. And I make sure I'm seeing my life coach once a month to be able to obviously meet my supervision requirements in my profession, but also to make sure that I'm not missing something. It's an expert opinion, which is, I find, incredibly valuable. So that's the first thing for me, is like, don't try to do it all on my own. And the second thing would be to get to know morning rituals that serve you, that work really well for you, and sacrifice for them. Sacrifice a little bit of sleep for them. Sacrifice staying up late the night before for them so that you can get up earlier. It's like they're actually worth the investment. And practice gratitude. When you are in a state of gratitude where you're grateful for what you have, there is an experience of enough around you all the time. And that is what abundance is. When people talk to me about wanting to do work on their abundance and their manifestation, I'm like, well, where's your gratitude practice? That's the magic. That's the key. When you start to see everything as full, something switches in your brain, and you are in a place of creating opportunities opportunities for yourself, for your business, for your for more love, more lusciousness, more great sex, more health, all the things that people are trying to fill up and get. It's in the art of gratitude, I find we experience that. So they would be the things I would say. Make sure if there's one area of your life you're neglecting, we have in my practice, and you can see from our online wellbeing programs through Get Real Institute, that we cover all 7 areas, and we do assessments in those areas. It's like, how are you doing with your creativity? What's missing in that? How can you bring more creativity into your home life, your work life, your sport, your whatever it is? How's your health going? And all that sort of stuff. So, find a process for you that works, to have a look at that and give your life a bit of a tune-up, because anxiety is always communicating that something's out of balance.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned Get Real Institute there, which we haven't really spoken too much about. Is that a place where people can go, like you just said, they can learn a bit about the 7 areas that they can focus on to deal with their mental health?
Absolutely. So there's a series of 10 life hacks on there given in video sessions. There's a family pack for the young user. There's an adults pack for all of us grown-ups. And then there's kids packs as well, so kids and teenagers. And they're a series of 10 wellbeing programs that deal with every aspect of life, starting right from early stage stress management into self-assessments of all the 7 essential human needs and how we can feed those, into time and executive function work, so time management, what your values are, how to set goals according to those, then action planning, working with negative self-talk, everything you can possibly imagine. So every step along the way, it's a 12-month program that you go through, and you do 1 hack per month, and you just work and play on it, and then you report back what you've achieved, and you've kind of got that level of support there. So for more information on that, you can go to getrealinstitute.com. and you can have a look at the various packages, or just email me and I'll send you through what might be best for what you're experiencing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And there's actually a specific sessions for COVID-19 restriction kind of adaptation. So in there you'll see Alex, you'll see yourself in there, and promoting the use of the saunas through the time where we can't get out and use the gyms as much, and how to create really good health practices at home. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah. No, you're doing some really cool stuff, Tams, and I think there's really not a more pertinent time for looking after ourselves, but looking after our mental health. The stresses that isolation put on people, I think, unless you're a psychologist, you're not really aware of the short, medium and long-term impacts. Even just not shaking people's hands, it's a weird thing, and it puts distance between us and other human beings. When we touch people, we connect with them. When we hug them, we connect. And I found even in business, seeing people and it's through Zoom, or if you see them, you can't shake hands. You can't, it's just odd. And these things have a mental impact over time. And so I'm sharing some gratitude right now for you and the work you're doing. I think it's really amazing.
Same here. Same gratitude coming right back at you. I think it's so important what you're doing, and really grateful to be with you in it.
Yeah, awesome. If people do want to, if they want to contact you, do they just go through Get Real?
Yeah, so if you go www.getrealinstitute.com, that's the best one to connect with me. If you have a young person that's experiencing some mental health issues, then probably through Alive is just as easy. You'll reach me either way, but alive.org.au is our mental wellbeing and mental health charity. So you can contact us through either of those sources. We have various resources available, from books to wellbeing videos and courses online, which is a really good way to access support right now. Online counselling and coaching and sporting programs and school programs are also available. So right. Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. But if you reach out to us, we can let you know what might best fit your situation.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for sweating it out with me.
Thank you to iHealth for all your support and being a sponsor for Alive. It's been an incredible partnership, and I look forward to seeing this all come live. I'd love to be able to share it on our platform too.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.